Good evening and welcome back to another episode of Red Wave USA. My name is Ross Raatz. We got a wonderful show for you tonight. Plenty of topics to cover. I know it's been a while since we've been back. I wanted to take a little break from all the uploading and everything. It kind of got a little hectic and it started to become the focal point of my life, and we do not really have the support yet for me to kind of go all in on something like this. So just wanted to take a little break, a little breather, but no worries. We are now back. I am now recording again. Red Wave USA is back once again. And we got some interesting topics. Still kind of a slower news week we're in right now. It's mainly just the government shutdown that is seeming to never end. It seems like this could go on for a very long time. And let me rephrase that, the Democratic government shutdown, right? But we'll talk a little bit about the government shutdown and everything that's developing with that and how things are being affected on that end. We're also going to talk a little bit about the future, right? We're going to talk about 2028 and how the Democrats are focusing on that, at least the top Democrats, as in Gavin, Newsom, and Kamala Harris, as they talk about eyeing a presidential run in 2028. It should be an interesting talk. We're also going to talk about our current president. We're going to talk about Trump, as we always do. We're going to criticize, and we're also going to give him some praise a little bit, too, on some of the things he's doing. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about, a little bit more of an uplifting thing, sort of. I made a TikTok. I made a TikTok for this show to put out clips to show everybody what we do on every so often, every week, what we talk about, right? Kind of get the word out there that Red Wave USA is climbing and that we're here to stay, right? Wow, was that ever a bad idea? Anyways, we will continue with that later. Thank you once again for tuning in. I know that there's kind of been a break in the episodes, but we are back now. I'm going to do my best to stay on a somewhat consistent schedule. So again, keep tuning in, keep liking, engaging, subscribing. Everything helps, and thank you. Tuesday, October 28th, we are coming closer and closer to Halloween and those fun festivities. I feel that as I'm getting, to my mid-20s, it's kind of not as fun as it used to be as a 21-year-old in college, going out and doing some not so nice activities. Maybe mom wouldn't agree with those type of activities, but having a beverage or two, right? Now, not so much, we're not getting all excited about our Halloween costume and getting excited about going to the bar anymore. It's, I'm kind of excited about having a cocktail and watching a scary movie, right? I think that's what we look more forward to. But anyways, I want to apologize for not being here or not uploading as much. I've been trying to, as I talked about in the intro, I've been trying to kickstart this TikTok a little bit, and again, with that comes editing and all of that, and I'll show you later that also comes with a lot of comments and responding to those comments, right? I didn't think it would really blow up like that, or not really blow up, but I didn't think it would reach the wrong side of TikTok, right? So we were dealing with that, but anyways, just want to put it out there. I apologize for not being here as much, but I'm going to try and change that. We're going to try and get used to or get back on that upload schedule that we've been so well about, right? But anyways, I want to talk about the government shutdown. I know it's been a while. I've kind of avoided the topic, just because there really hadn't been any developments. And now it's kind of reaching that point where we're going to start seeing some crazy developments, right? So we're on the 28th day right now, obviously, right? And we're approaching the 29th. It's not looking good. Today, the Democrats blocked the 13th vote now to And this is just to fund the government, right? But the problem is the Democrats are wanting to push legislation through a funding bill. And that's not what you do through a funding bill. Funding bills are specifically to fund the government, keep it open, make sure the people of America are getting federally paid, right? Federal workers are getting paid. And the big thing right now that is coming to an end on November 1st is SNAP payments and food stamps, right? Federal assistance, government assistance. Well, I know it seems kind of more common that people are being on that. We saw some videos, or at least I did, on my social media. I'm sure you've kind of seen them being passed around, that people are rather angry about this whole SNAP food stamps and things like that are not going to be paid to them on November 1st, right? All those systems are going to be shut down on November 1st, and these people are not going to be paid their food stamps, right? At least the videos that I saw were just people in outrage that Trump is taking away their food stamps and they are going to raise hell because they're not receiving those food stamps.
My kids have not eaten in 5 days. It is the taxpayer's responsibility to take care of my kids.
Trump done cut them food stamps off.
If you're poor, don't have kids, okay? If you're struggling, don't have kids. Don't bring more in. If you already have them, that's another situation. If you don't have them, don't bring any in. And if you have two, don't go having another one. If you have one, don't go having two more.
So they say 2 million is getting cut off this month for the scamps. I'm about to go find out if I'm in that number, in that ratio.
It's been day 5 and I have not received no food stamps. My disability checks is on hold. My cash benefits is not coming no more. They're still pending. It is the taxpayer's job to pay for my kids to eat and for my kids to be taken care of. I have over 2,000 followers on TikTok and I can't get not one person to send me 50 cents. If you're watching a video and you can't send me nothing, I'm blocking you.
You know, I talked to my family members about this. I talked to my grandparents and I said, you know, there's a lot of people that are really angry about this whole food stamps thing, this SNAP being shut down, right? Because the government shut down. We don't have funding, right? And I talked to them and I was like, what about this? You know, I want to know more. And they were like, you know, back in the day, you used to be embarrassed to be on these government assistance programs, right? It used to be embarrassing. If you were receiving food stamps, that wasn't something that you were gloating to everybody. That wasn't something that you were recording yourself and putting on social media, that you were receiving this and you're upset that it's not going to come to you on November 1st because of the government shutdown. That's not something that you publicly talked about, right? Because you should be rather ashamed to be on that, right? You want to be working and providing for yourself, right? But anyways, the videos that came out, and I'll see if I can find some of them, find a way to put them into our show. Again, it's tough to download off of like an Instagram reel or something. I don't really have a download option, but basically I'll kind of sum them up. You know, these videos are people just absolutely, you know, frustrated, not even frustrated, more or less just, you know, in an angry rage at Trump and the Republicans, saying, if I don't get my food stamps or my EBT, there's going to be hell to pay. My kids are going to eat no matter what. I'm going into the store and I'm taking what I want, right? And even one was like, the taxpayers, you owe me this. You owe me food stamps and EBT. This is what the taxpayers are for. You're supposed to be paying for me and my kids, right? And again, why you would ever post something like that on the internet is insane to me. Why you would ever publicly flaunt that you are on government assistance programs, right? And expect it. You're sitting there expecting for the taxpayer to pay for your food, right? Even one of the videos I saw even said, they want me to get a job I don't need to get a job because the taxpayer owes me money through EBT. And I don't understand it, why you would ever demean yourself like this and post it publicly. Obviously, it's going to go viral. You're complaining about not having your route paid for, not having your life paid for by somebody else, not being taken care of, right? You know, if you have 4 or 5 kids, that is your responsibility to pay for, right? At least until they're of age to get themselves a job, right? It's on you. You had those kids, right? But again, the responsibility is absent. It's gone, right? But anyways, get mad at the Democrats, right? It seems like most of these people posting these EBT videos or SNAP food videos are upset at the Republicans and upset at Trump, right? That's not the case. You should be mad that the Democrats are trying to push legislation through a funding bill. You want your EBT funding, it comes through this funding bill, right? But no, Democrats are trying to push legislation through a funding bill. And the Republicans have said over and over, listen, we will come to the table and we will talk about this legislation that you're trying to push forward. We will. That's the whole point of government. We're going to sit here and negotiate. But we're not going to do it through a funding bill. That's not where legislation is passed, right? That's not where legislation is talked about. This is specifically to fund our government. This is specifically to fund federal programs. This is specifically to pay our military, to pay federal employees. This isn't for you to take your stand and push through legislation. That's not what this is about. But it seems that Democrats are digging in, right? They want to blame this entire thing on Trump, right? There's even statements, I have a screenshot, I'll pull it up now. The GOP actually posted statements from Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, right? Saying this is our leverage. We're not going to give up our leverage. Us having the government shut down looks bad on Trump, right? Since they have Congress, they have a majority. Since they have the executive, this looks bad on the Republicans. So we're going to keep it that way, right? So you mean to say that you're shutting down the government and using it as political leverage, using it as political talk points. You are putting American citizens in danger. You understand that, right, Democrats? All these people going without food and now threatening, rather, that they're going to raid stores and take what's theirs. This is on the Democrats. And they don't seem to understand that. They don't seem to understand that all hell is going to break loose. You know, if these people are actually serious about raiding their local grocery stores, you know, I guess my advice to my viewers, go to the grocery store now, get your things, because if they're really going to cause hell, you know, and I don't want to spread panic. I think that's the last thing that I should ever do. But if they're really serious about going in and being violent and taking what they want from these stores and robbing these stores, I don't want to be around that, you know. But this is what the Democrats want to see. They want to see America break down systematically. They want to see America break down financially. Because in their mind, it looks bad on Trump. Right? And blame it all on Trump. That's where we're at with this. Because obviously, they just said they're using it as leverage, right? Again, go back to that screenshot. You know, and the longer this shutdown goes on and the longer the Democrats continue to block votes, as I said previously, this is the 13th vote that they've blocked. You know, and they want to talk about how Republicans aren't coming to the table. We're the ones pushing these votes, right? We're the ones voting to reopen the government, right? But again, you want to use it as leverage. This is the classic case of a child not getting what they want and throwing a temper tantrum, right? the child isn't getting something at the store. And I know I did it when I wasn't getting a toy. Back when I was a child, I grabbed a toy off the shelf and almost demanded that my mom buy it for me, right? And that's not how things work. You're not going to get that toy today. But that's what it seems like. It's a very immature push by the Democrats. But again, what more do you expect? I'm not surprised by it. But again, it's really killing America right now. But again, have the Democrats really been America first? Have the Democrats really cared? No. They don't care. They want to say they're for the working party, for the working class, right? The Democrats want to say they're for the everyday man and woman. Obviously, that's not the case. And I hope people are seeing that. I hope people are seeing that Democrats aren't for you. They're for themselves, right? They are still adamant that they're getting paid through all this, right? All your Democratic legislators, they're all still getting paid through this government shutdown, right? Representative Thune of the Republican Party, right? I'll see if I can pull this video up. He goes on and says that, these Democrats are bringing forward that they still need to be paid, right? They have mortgages to pay and kids to feed. What do you think the rest of America, the large percentage that's on these federal assistance programs, do you think they're any different, right? But no, again, it's a leverage point, right?
One of the hosts suggested that members of Congress should refuse to take their paychecks during a shutdown. And what did the senior Democrat senator from Vermont say? He said that some members of Congress couldn't afford to go without pay. Does he think that other Americans can? The junior Democrat senator from Arizona told NBC News near the beginning of the shutdown that he couldn't afford to miss his paycheck. This was his quote: "I'm not wealthy, and I have 3 kids. I would basically be missing, mortgage payments, rent payments, child support. So it's not feasible, not going to happen," end quote. Does he think they don't have mortgage payments, rent payments, school expenses, electric bills? The junior Democrat senator from Minnesota stated that she would not be foregoing her pay because she's continuing to work. Because she's continuing to work. Do Democrats even hear themselves?
And I'll move past this whole government shutdown thing, but I want to just kind of update on that. Again, November 1st, these federal assistance programs are going to be shut down, and these people aren't going to be receiving their food stamps or whatever. So we're really going to see how this plays out in the coming weeks and the effects that this has on America, especially in bigger cities, right? Where, the whole Democratic ideology, or at least their supporters, it seems that are on these government assistance programs, they're just going to raise hell. And then that's how they're going to get their point, right? But anyways, I came across an article. Democrats Gavin Newsom and Kamala Harris are eyeing a 2028 presidential run. Now, Gavin Newsom, I kind of understand. He's been at the talks of a presidential run for a while now. He was kind of in those talks in 2024 when the Democrats decided to just handpick their candidate and not go through a primary process. Gavin Newsom was one of those names to be handpicked and thrown at their voters, and kind of expecting that that's all right. But again, obviously that's not the way we do things in America. There needs to be a primary, right? As for Newsom, he came out with a statement saying, "I would be lying if I wasn't preparing, or rather thinking about, a presidential run." So obviously that is on his mind. And I want to talk a little bit about Gavin Newsom and the way he's ran California. Can you imagine if Gavin Newsom was our president? Can you imagine if the United States began to look like California? Here's the thing. I cannot imagine, and I know this is a small topic, right, in our everyday lives, but can you imagine a gas price in Michigan of $5 to $6, even sometimes hitting $7 in California? Can you imagine that? Because I can't. I'm still here paying the $2, right? A little bit under $3. I know during Biden it got up to almost $4 here in Michigan, rather. But, and then again, I know it's a small topic, but can you imagine paying $5 for a gallon of gas in Michigan? I can't imagine that. I can't imagine Michigan turning into a California. The rampant homelessness, right? Gavin Newsom has struggled again and again to pass things that he likes to pass. You know, we've been on this speed rail, this high-speed rail line, this huge project for years. His entire candidacy as governor, right? His entire term. This whole high-speed rail issue has been going on for a long time, and that has never been done. So if you can't keep your promises as a governor, right, how are you going to do that as president? How are you going to push forward your legislation as president if you can't even do it as a governor? But again, I wouldn't want America to look like California, okay? The criminal leeway that they give, right, the whole catch and release system that California has, right? You can't leave your car past 8 p.m. on the side of the road. It's going to get broken into in California, in most big cities, that is, right? I can't imagine living in America like that, and I hope you can't imagine that either, right? But anyways, he still talks about how he's eyeing this presidential run, right? But hey, if you want cost of living to be like California, if you want, you know, Prop 45 and 47, the criminal propositions to become American law, catch and release systems to be rampant throughout the USA, then yeah, vote for Gavin Newsom, right? If you want crime to spread like wildfire, sure. And as for Kamala Harris, right, we already saw how this played out. She's not a very good debater. It's kind of the same thing as Biden, right? She's got that earpiece on and everything is being fed to her, you know? It's going to be the exact same thing as Biden. The auto pen will come out of retirement in a Kamala Harris presidency, right? But do you really think in a Kamala Harris presidency, or rather a liberal executive, do you really think we'd be having the progress that we do in international relations? Do you really think we'd have a peace deal on the table? I don't think Biden was able to push forward a peace deal, right? Biden or Kamala. Kamala already did this. She was vice president. I don't think she was fighting for a peace deal in any war that's going on, whether that be Russia, Ukraine, Israel, Hamas, right? No, we saw a horrible economy, one of the worst in a long, long time. We saw that under a Democratic presidency, right? And do you think that would change if it was Kamala Harris or somebody younger? Absolutely not. Again, Democrats are for themselves. That's at least what I'm seeing. You're not showing me anything different right now in this government shutdown, right? You're going to get paid, right, to be a legislator. That's most important to you as a Democrat. While other federal workers go without pay, while the military goes without pay, federal assistance programs shut down. You're more worried about yourself. And you think that's going to change in a liberal presidency? No, it's not. Trump right now is one of the best defensive presidents, one of the best that we have for international relations, in my opinion. You need somebody that's going to be strong on foreign policy. You need somebody that's going to be there and fight for foreign policy, not someone that's going to be laid back and walked all over, right? That's why I say Trump is one of the best. You know, you need an authority figure. And don't take my words and run with them, right? I said Trump's an authority figure. Don't take that and say that, oh, he's an authoritarian leader. Trump's an authoritarian leader. He's a dictator, right? You just said it. No, I want somebody strong who's going to fight for American values in office. And while personally, I think Trump's not doing the greatest job, but he's doing a hell of a lot better than any Democrat would do. When Biden was in office, Vladimir Putin started the Russia-Ukraine war because he knew that nothing's going to happen to him. right? He's not going to be slain in politics. Yeah, Biden shut down some policies and deals with Russia, but there was no pressure put on Vladimir Putin to stop this war. Right now, you have someone like Trump, this big influence, is going to absolutely slaughter you in the media, one, and he's going to push for a peace deal, two. And that's the only thing on his mind. We saw him coming back from when he signed the peace deal, right? We saw him coming back at 4 a.m, absolutely disheveled and tired. You know, this is someone who's working for you, right? And I know he still needs to do a better job on America First. We're getting there. We got 3 more years to do it. Again, we're still cleaning up the horrible system that we were dealt by the Democrats, the horrible hand we were dealt, rather, by the Democrats, with the economy, with international relations, absolutely in a horrible position with wars going on everywhere, right? We're still cleaning up. And it takes a while to clean all that crap up, right? But anyways, I know I kind of get active about this because it does. You want to be active in politics because you care about your country. You care about the United States. At least I do. Comes from some of the Democrats that they don't, right? America First has never been a policy on their end, right? Make America Great Again has been a dubbed phrase that they show absolutely no affection for. You know, you want to go against Make America Great Again. What, you don't want America to be great, right? It's dumbfounding to me. It really is. But that's the stance that they've taken. They've labeled MAGA as a Klan-like organization, right? They call us racist. They call us everything. And I know I talk about this a lot, but it's true. They never seem to step away from that. And a prime example of that was shown to me on TikTok, right? So here's the thing. I wanted to make a TikTok, right? I know I do the YouTube shorts now, and those pull a lot of views, for me, at least for a small creator. And that's how we get the word out. That's how we get more subscribers. That's how we get more of a following to push our conservative agenda, right? That's the whole thing. You want to have a voice and you want to be able to spread that voice to make more people aware of what's going on in our government. So I said, you know what? TikTok is one of the biggest platforms right now. So I made a Red Wave USA TikTok. Be sure to go follow that. I'll link it in the description for you to go give that a follow. If you do have a TikTok, I know I talked about in one of my previous episodes, I've never used TikTok. I never have. I've never liked it because it seems to be at least from what I've seen, it seems to be a liberal hub, right? That's their platform in a sense. At least that's what I've learned. But so I made a Red Wave USA TikTok. Be sure to go follow that, give it a follow, give it some watch time and a like or two. It's just clips from these episodes, some of the most engaging clips, and I did some editing and threw, the subtitles and little music behind it, right? Make it more engaging. But, some of the things I posted, I posted one talking about America and how much I love it, right? I'm a patriot at heart, and that was criticized. And the biggest one, the one that really blew up was me talking about the ballroom, right? My last episode, I talked about Trump's ballroom, and the biggest thing, and this is what they see from Democratic legislators, Schumer had a big old poster board saying Trump's first priority right now is his ballroom. He doesn't care about anything else. Right, that's why he'd be traveling overseas to make peace deals every day. Anyways. That it was met with complete, flack from the left. I had hundreds of comments on these videos, all negative. And, I'm trying to respond to these. I'm trying to be, this is political discourse, right? This is civil discourse. This is what we're here for. We're here for the debate. I did not expect it to be this live. I didn't expect this much pushback. I really tried to reach the right side of TikTok, the Republican side of TikTok, people that agree with me. And I saw there was a little bit sprinkled in there of people kind of defending me a little bit, but no. And again, I go back to kind of the main defense from Democrats and liberals is to just demean your character, right? And people, some of these, let's go to the comments. I got some photos. I'm going to post them up in the video as I read them. The first one that I'm going to talk about, and I'm going to blur out these users, hopefully, right? I'm going to try and edit that out. But first comment that we had that I'm going to show you guys today, and this was the moral of the story. I was getting more comments than likes, and obviously that shows that it reached the wrong side of TikTok. Even when I'm putting hashtags like MAGA and Republican in America, right? It's still reaching this left TikTok, right? Well, the first comment is 12 comments, 5 likes. Karma works in the shadows, right? Hey, you know, you found a small creator that's just trying to get started, and yeah, go ahead, demean him a little bit. And so he talks about karma. I posted the presidential election results where Trump had, you know, what was it, 310 electoral votes. I posted the final of that, and I said, sure does. You know, shaking hands emoji. Karma sure does pay, you know. I was just having fun. A lot of this I'm just having fun with, you know. It puts a smile on my face to do things like this, to be able to have this political discourse. But anyways, next one. The government is shut down. People are going to go hungry. And we are building a ballroom, right? Again, that goes back to this whole stance that Trump is more worried about a ballroom rather than the citizens of America, right? You can point that right back at your Democratic legislature. Call your local office, right? Call your local Democratic legislator, your local Democratic senator, right? Your local Democratic representative. Call them. They're sticking in this pack, right? They're sticking in this pack. It's still been 45 votes no on this funding bill. You want to say, oh, well, Democrats aren't willing to negotiate on the healthcare subsidies. Yeah, we're not willing to negotiate on this because it's not legislation to be negotiated on. It's a funding bill for the government. It's not for you to push your new legislation, your new law. This is not the time for that. The time is to pass funding to keep our government open and for people that are going hungry to receive their government assistance. That's what this time is for. So yeah, build a ballroom. We're waiting on you, Democrats. The clock's ticking. Go check out the White House website. That's how long we've been in this, right? So I found that funny. And then the next one, great value Nick Fuentes. Well, I aspire not to be a Nick Fuentes. I agree with some of his views. I like the America First ideology. You know, I wonder if Trump is really going to start pushing America first, you know, but it's hard to do that right now. We're in an international relations crisis, you know? And so, yeah, and Nixon was so great, right? This is where I posted a clip talking about the new ballroom, and I said, I went through every single renovation that every president has made in the past to the White House, right? And the example that I used was Nixon built a bowling alley because I thought that one was the funniest, and I was comparing it to, can you imagine if Trump was building a bowling alley during the government shutdown? Do you know how upset people would be then? Right? That was I wasn't using Nixon as a credible president source, right? I understand his leave from the White House wasn't the greatest, right? But I was using the bowling alley as a comparison, right? I thought it was funny. Anyways, we'll go on. You for sure have a Grindr account, and from further research, I've found that Grindr is a gay dating app or a LGB rainbow alphabet dating app, right? And I said, I'm Christian and straight, buddy. I'm sorry that that's bad news for you, and I'm sorry you can't find me on those dating apps, but I'm attracted to women, right? I'm a Christian. I don't associate with that, right? And again, this is the whole Democratic attack your personal character. We don't care about politics. We're just going to attack you. We're going to attack the small creator trying to start up a TikTok account. That's who we're going to attack, right? We're going to attack your credibility, your personality, your looks even. I have a comment attacking my setup, right? And how it's not professional and it looks like a bedroom. It is. It's a side office bedroom, right? It's a spare room. It's where I have room to do this, right? Anyways, we will move on. Yeah, right here. Finish your video. Your mom needs her bedroom back, right? Again, attacking credibility, being negative, not actually talking about the contents of the video, not actually wanting to get in a political discussion. No, we're just going to attack this kid's credibility and this kid's, we're going to attack this kid as an individual. And where he's doing his small startup political talk show, right? I don't make money off this. I do this out of my free time. I take time out of my day to upload this because I'm passionate about it. I'm passionate about politics, right? So I'm sorry the setup isn't great. So I hope this new setup, right? I hope this new setup kind of suits your style a little bit. I hope you like this sign here. I had that out in my lawn for a good year in 2024, right? I had stickers on my truck. I went to multiple Trump shows, right? Or his meetings or gatherings, right? Went to one in Grand Rapids at the Van Andel, right? So yeah, I hope this setup is more in tune, is a little better for you. Again, I'm a small creator just trying to start up, so everything's not going to be amazing. I don't have enough money for a green screen or a nice camera setup. But you know what I do have? I have good political talk points. I'm going to bring them to you, right? Argue with me on that. But anyways, again, I hope you do like the new setup. I'm trying something a little new here, right? And I said, but anyways, going back to it, my response to that was, yes, when the liberal mind has no reasonable argument, insults are then resorted to, right? Just insulting my setup or whatever. And again, right below this, I wonder if your parents get annoyed hearing you talk about this while they're trying to get sleep so they can go to work, right? Again, just attack the credibility. Seems to be the only thing that they can argue about, right? Just be negative. And, I haven't met too many Democrats that are happy. I haven't. They're completely upset with America. They don't like America. And this is exactly what we have here. Case in point, right? Anyways, we will move on. I typed in dork in the search bar, and this is what I got. Seems accurate. And again, there was hundreds of comments. So I was just going around copy and pasting the reply to everybody that was posting comments like this, at least, right? But this is what we deal with as conservatives. We deal with the constant insults from the left. We deal with the constant, them berating our character, right? I bet if I was to wear this red hat in the episodes, actually wear it, there'd be a lot more negative comments, We'll move on. The main thing, okay, so this one, I was talking about the violent protests that's going on, mainly the one in Portland where this ICE facility is being completely attacked, right? They wanted to say that nothing was more violent than the January 6th attacks that was accompanied by 243 federal agents throughout it that Pelosi didn't call the National Guard in on, right? No, they just let it happen. They let people walk in. They opened the doors right up. And I still don't believe that was a fully Republican-led insurrection, if you will, if that's what you'd like to call it. I think, there was probably a lot of far-righters that really went into that, but I think they were influenced to do that. They were saying, hey, walk right in, we'll make you look bad like that, right? But anyways, they said, they even had where is it? Oh, I guess I didn't take a screenshot of it going all the way down, but later in that comment, he goes on to say they even put a guillotine outside of the Capitol. You want to talk about violence? So I posted the guillotine that they put up outside the ICE facility, And I was like, all you have is January 6th. Show me another Republican protest that's been violent and destroyed federal facilities. Show me. You want to talk January 6th? That's the only talking point that you have. And I said, oh, and here's the guillotine that they put up outside the ICE facility. You want to talk about guillotines being put up? Here's one that your side put up. You know, we'll move on. This guy in his room pretending like he's part of his team, or part of the team would have been the correct vernacular there. And I said, just a conservative, you know, just trying to push conservative values. Then the next comment is, conservatives are dead. As I look right now, I'm pretty alive and well, preaching the conservative word, you know. But anyways, again, attack the character. It's the only thing they can really do right now, because they know that their stance isn't a good one, you know. But anyways, I should have the right to push my conservative agenda, right, and talk about it. But again, you know, they're totally against the First Amendment. So anyways, we'll move on. Charlie, this one was a little confusing to me. I didn't know if this was a threat or not, right? Charlie Kirk 2.0. I said, you know what? If I can be compared to Charlie Kirk, the legend, in any aspect, I am taking that as a compliment 100%. I know that I am nowhere near the debater. You know, this guy was so smart. He was on it, you know. In his debates at college campuses, he was on it. Someone brought up a topic. He knew about it. You know, I'm still coming along in my political knowledge, but I'm trying, right? They said Charlie Kirk 2.0. That's the best compliment a Republican influencer or Republican speaker can receive, you know, because he was so great. He was so influential. And then you go down, right? Yeah, I didn't mean this comment like you thought. So obviously the commenter had seen that I liked the comment, right? So if I'm Charlie Kirk 2.0, you're saying that I'm going to be shot or assassinated. That's what I took from that. I didn't mean this comment like you thought. Okay, so you mean it as a threat then? Anyways, whatever. It is what it is. And that's about all the comments that I had. I wanted to share that with you. I wanted to share my TikTok experience with you because it was just met with so much negativity. Well, I do appreciate those of you who did comment and did, you know, combat these liberal commenters, right? But that's where I stood on TikTok. I just thought it was funny. I wanted to share this with you. And maybe this will become a segment where I share with you the most recent comments and the most negative comments, and we can laugh together on things like this, right? But anyways, I do try and kind of chop up these videos and throw them on the TikTok. So be sure to give that a follow. Just click on the description in the YouTube video, right? And you'll be able to follow that TikTok from there. And anyways, that is our show for this evening. It was so great to be back with all of you, the small viewership, committed viewership that we have. It was great to be back. I'm happy to be back talking about politics again. It's been a while. I haven't been able to discuss what's been going on recently. So I thank you for tuning in and giving me support. It's what keeps this show going, right? And apparently TikTok, we're going to start receiving some more views, right? Whether that be negative or not. So if you have any tips or anything on how I can receive or rather get my videos to the right side of TikTok, please let me know. I'm confused on how to do that, right? But anyways, I'm glad to be back. I hope you guys like the new setup, a little something new. I wanted to kind of take less, you know, all the distractions out of the background. So I got my books here. I got a little pumpkin as we're approaching Halloween. We're almost there, right? And I got my Trump yard sign in the background, right? We'll add to the display of what we talk about here on Red Wave USA, right? So anyways, again, you guys know how I end every single show. Be proud to be the conservative that you are. Be proud of your values. Be proud of your conservative values, right? Be proud to be a Republican. Don't ever back down, you know. Doing this TikTok and all the comments, you know, you'd think it would really just kind of sway me not to be on that platform. But, you know, it fueled me more. Yeah, have more comments than likes. It doesn't matter to me. Let's talk about it. Let's have a discussion. This is America. We're allowed to do that. We have the First Amendment, right? We're allowed to talk about political things without getting angry at each other. I know that aspect of political talks seems to kind of fly over the Democrats' head, and how you shouldn't take political matters personal. But again, that's the day and age of the Democratic Party, right? But anyways, be proud to be a conservative. Keep your values. Don't let anyone sway you away from those values. Don't let anyone demean you to the point where you think your values aren't valid, right? Especially, I know there's a lot of flack, as we've seen on my TikTok. Don't let that sway you away from holding your conservative values. There is people out there, there's a majority rather, as we've seen from the 2024 election. We won in the popular vote. You know, there's a majority of people out there that agree with conservative values, that want to conserve the American lifestyle, right? So continue to hold that near and dear. Don't let these radical Democrats take that away from you, right? So again, thank you for tuning in to Red Wave USA. It is my pleasure to bring you another episode. I'm going to try and get back on the wagon here and start uploading more again. Have a great night. Have a great rest of your week. I am sure that I will be back with you again this week. So anyways, thank you for tuning in and have a great night.